monster ESPN layoffs that are currently underway as we speak. And I'll just give you some of the people who have been laid off so far by ESPN. Jalen Rose, Jeff Van Gundy, Susie Colbert, Todd McShay. There is a bevy of people, Steve Young, who have worked at ESPN, many of them for a very long time, Max Kellerman, Keyshawn Johnson, many of them who have worked at ESPN for a long time and are otherwise being paid very well. What's going on here? First of all, I've been fired. You guys know that. I started OutKick because I got fired by Fan House. It's not fun to be fired. Many of you out there have worked at companies where you have been fired as well. But I wish everybody there well as they recover from the firings. But here's what I think is important. The story here is ESPN's business is rapidly collapsing. And I've been arguing this for years. Some of you who are watching or listening to this now are nodding along because I told you exactly what was going to happen as cord cutting accelerated. Basically, there used to be 100 million cable and satellite subscribers to ESPN's channel. Now we're down to around 70 million. And that number may well fall all the way to 50. It continues to accelerate. And as those cable subscribers come off the books for ESPN, their revenue is declining massively. They are not making that money back up in streaming, and I'll talk about that in a second. And it's simultaneously, all of the sports leagues are asking for more money for their sports rights. For instance, the NBA is coming up. The NFL just came up. And that means that ESPN is being required to spend far more money on sports rights at the simultaneous time that their revenue is collapsing from the cable and satellite bundle. That's a bad combination. As if that were not enough, they also are having to spend gobs of money in streaming, and they're actually losing money in streaming. In fact, Disney, the parent company of ESPN, has lost $11 billion. That's billion with a B, so far in streaming. They've lost $11 billion. They haven't made money back at all. The profit margins at ESPN are getting squeezed, and some people say, well, they're just going to pivot and shift to ESPN Plus. They're not going to. Streaming is seasonal. It is far less profitable, and so far we do not have the best available sports on there, but eventually you're going to have to pay $200 or $300 a year for ESPN if you want to subscribe all year long, and you're still not going to get the cable and satellite bundle, right? All this is collapsing. And so what's happening is the business side is panicked, and they are trying to cut tens of millions of dollars in yearly salary off of the ESPN books, and that's how you get the Susie Colberts of the world who've been there for a long time, the Max Kellermans, the Keyshawn Johnsons, the Matt Hasselbacks. All those guys who make a lot of money are losing their jobs, and ESPN's trying to save tens of millions of dollars. Now, simultaneously, they've hired Pat McAfee. It's a tough spot for Pat McAfee to walk into because a lot of these guys are getting fired, and many people, we have a story up about this right now, online are ripping Pat McAfee and saying, hey, you're going to make $18 million a year. That's the reported deal. And all of these people who are making less than you are losing their jobs. Not fair, because ESPN is saying, hey, we're going to make a lot of money off this new Pat McAfee show. They may or may not. I don't know. But I never think it's fair when you blame talent for their salaries as a condition of other people losing their jobs. For instance, Stephen A. Smith is among the highest paid people at ESPN. ESPN makes a lot of money off of Stephen A. Smith's talent. Therefore, they're able to hire more people, right? First Take is a very profitable show. I'll give you an example. I'm at iHeart. iHeart is one of the most lucrative, the Clay and Buck show is one of the most lucrative products in all of iHeart. In fact, they may make more money at iHeart off Clay and Buck than they do off any other show in the entirety of iHeart. I don't know. I don't see the books on everybody. They make a lot of money off us. That means that iHeart can invest and hire many more people as a function of how much money they're able to make off of us, right? That's how business works. The most lucrative and profitable parts of that business allow money to be spent in other parts of the business that may or may not make as much money. So I don't think it's fair to blame Pat McAfee, but I do think the seismic structural attack that is currently going on against ESPN's business and Disney writ large is a big story. And I've been ahead of it, and a lot of people out there were like, oh, you're wrong, Clay. ESPN's making a ton of money. You have no idea what you're talking about. No, that's not true. ESPN's profit margin is rapidly declining. In the years ahead, they may well move into the red. That is where Disney is losing money off of ESPN, which is why on some level I feel like Disney may spin off ESPN, maybe to a sports gambling company. I don't know where this is headed, but I know that ESPN's business is in severe straits, rapidly declining, is not likely to be successful in the decade ahead. And I told you about a decade ago this was all going to happen. So I don't take particular joy in it, but if you go back and read everything that I wrote, ESPN has been a middleman for a very long time. The cable and satellite bundle was one of the best media businesses of all time in terms of profitability and how much everybody made. And now everybody's cutting their cable and satellite bill, and that bill is coming due, which means a lot more people are going to get fired, even people that have been highly paid and highly touted inside of ESPN. So that is the story about what is going on there. The ongoing layoffs. This will not be the last layoffs that happen at ESPN. There is more that will occur as well, and things are going to continue to get worse in the cable and satellite media industry. Some will be able to stream, right? Some will be able to make the move to streaming. And I'll give you an example that I think is true. It doesn't cost that much to do MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News. What do I mean by that? You cover the news. You don't have to buy the news, right? You have to buy Monday Night Football to put it on. You have to buy the NBA. You have to buy Major League Baseball to put all of that on the air. It is very, very expensive to run a sports network. And what used to happen was ESPN was the middleman. When they had 100 million subscribers, everybody's paying monthly cable and satellite bills. What ESPN would do was take all that money and then roll much of it into buying sports rights. Now, their pile of cash is diminishing. Likely about half of all of the subscribers are going to be out there in the decade ahead. You're going to go from 100 million to 50 million, and ESPN's not going to be able to afford the same quality of sports programming, which is going to further drive subscriptions down. And streaming is not going to save them. You've got two sinking ships simultaneously, the cable and satellite business and the streaming business. Right now, they still make money off cable and satellite. They make nothing off of streaming. Eventually, both of them are going to be money losers. And I don't know how this is going to come off. You've seen it on some level with what happened with the regional sports networks, right? When you think a lot of these teams are not getting paid now and the regional sports networks are basically bankrupt, I think it may end up being the case for ESPN as well. I think ESPN may be headed sooner rather than later towards bankruptcy.